The hall smelled of roses and champagne, glittering under chandeliers that cost more than I'd ever earned in my life. 500 guests filled the seats, their voices rising like a storm as I walked toward the altar in my white dress, veil brushing my shoulders. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, this day could belong to me. But then Rachel, my sister, made her move. She had been waiting. She sat at the front in a silver gown brighter than mine, her hair curled like she was the bride herself. She leaned across the table, her voice sweet but venomous. Maybe he'll finally realize your second choice when you open your mouth in front of all these people. My stomach tightened. I clenched my bouquet and whispered back, "Not today, Rachel. This isn't about you. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments, from where are you watching this video?" Her smirk spread wide and her voice lifted just loud enough to carry. "Dad, did you hear that? She thinks she can talk back to me on her own wedding day." The crowd shifted, murmurs weaving through the music. My father's chair scraped back. His heavy steps echoed like thunder as he stormed toward me. Before I could even breathe, his hand cracked across my face. Gasps shot through the crowd. My bouquet slipped from my fingers, scattering petals across the polished floor. His fist followed. Pain flared across my cheekbone, stars exploding in my vision. I stumbled, grabbing the edge of the cake table, nearly knocking it over as laughter rippled through the guests. "You think you're better than your sister?" he bellowed. His spit hit my face as his voice rattled the microphones. "Talk back to her again and I'll break you in front of everyone." The world spun. I tasted iron on my tongue. I tried to steady myself, but another blow sent me reeling. My veil tore, my crown clattered to the floor, rolling under the chairs. And then came her voice, my mother's, sharp and cruel. She stood with her glass of wine, not to stop him, but to make it worse. She sneered so the microphones carried every syllable. "Bow to your sister," she said, her lips curling, "or crawl out like a dog. Those are your choices." The room erupted. Some guests laughed. Others clapped awkwardly, not sure if it was theater or cruelty. I looked to Ethan, my fiancé, the man standing frozen at the altar. His face was pale, his hands clenched, but he didn't move. He didn't speak. He let me bleed while 500 people watched. Rachel rose from her chair, her silver gown gleaming under the lights. She walked toward me, bent down, and whispered in my ear so only I could hear. "You'll never be more than the shadow I let you be. This is my wedding now." The words pierced deeper than Dad's fists. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip her crown of arrogance off her head, but I stayed still, my pride trembling under the weight of humiliation. The laughter, the whispers, the clinking glasses, it all burned into me like fire. I wiped my cheek with the back of my hand, straightened my torn veil, and looked at the ground where my tiara lay shattered. My father grinned, my mother raised her glass, Rachel basked in the glow of stolen attention. They thought I was finished. But I wasn't. As I stood there, humiliated before 500 eyes, something shifted deep inside me. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I let the silence harden into steel. Because if they wanted me to crawl, I would make sure the day came when they crawled instead. I didn't remember walking out of the hall that night. One moment I was standing on the stage with my cheeks swollen, my veil torn, and 500 eyes burning into me like fire. The next moment, I was outside in the cold, my heels dragging against the pavement, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses still echoing behind me. I waited for Ethan. I thought maybe he would follow me, maybe he'd take my hand, tell me none of it mattered. But he didn't. He stayed inside. I saw him through the glass doors, still standing near the altar, shaking his head while my parents toasted with wine. My fiancé had chosen his silence over me. By the next morning, the internet had already begun its work. Videos of my father striking me spread through the guests' group chats like wildfire. Some wrote captions like, "Unbelievable" or "She deserved discipline." Others just sent laughing emojis. My humiliation had become their entertainment. I stayed inside my apartment with the blinds drawn. My cheek turned purple, my eye darkened, and my ribs ached every time I breathed. But what cut deeper than the bruises was the silence. Not one call from my mother, not one text from Rachel, not a single word of apology. After 3 days, the phone finally buzzed. It was Rachel. Just 5 words. "Hope you practiced crawling, sis." I dropped the phone onto the couch, staring at the ceiling until the rage boiled through my chest like acid. I couldn't stay quiet anymore, so I went back. When I walked into my parents' house, the smell of coffee and perfume hit me first. Mom sat at the dining table flipping through a magazine, her red nails tapping against the glass. She looked up, her eyes narrowing. "Well," she said smoothly, "look who decided to come crawling home. You should have stayed gone. At least then you'd have spared us the embarrassment." Rachel leaned against the counter, scrolling on her phone, her silver bracelet catching the light. "Oh, good. You're here," she said, grinning. "Now I can tell you in person. You made the best wedding speech ever. Dad's fist said everything we've always wanted to." My throat tightened, but I forced silence over the scream clawing at me. Then Dad walked in, his shirt half-buttoned, still reeking of whiskey even though the sun was barely up. His grin was wide, cruel. "Still walking upright, huh?" he chuckled. "After what I taught you, I figured you'd stay on your knees where you belong." The words sliced me open, but instead of bleeding, I froze. Something inside me turned cold, like ice spreading through my veins. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't give them the reaction they wanted. I went upstairs without a word. My old room hadn't changed. Dust on the dresser, faded wallpaper, the same cracked mirror that had once reflected a little girl desperate for love. I sat on the bed, trembling, hearing their laughter downstairs as if I were still on that wedding stage. And that's when I realized something. They weren't going to stop. Not after one night. Not after one humiliation. They had made my pain into their celebration, and they would keep doing it until I was nothing but the shadow Rachel claimed I was. So the silence hardened, the tears dried, and the plan began to take shape. It wasn't about escaping them. It wasn't about begging Ethan to care. It was about something else, something that would burn deeper than fists, louder than sneers. Because if they thought I was going to crawl, they were about to learn what it felt like when the dog they mocked finally bared its teeth. 2 months later, Rachel announced her victory party. Not just a birthday, not just a dinner. She called it the celebration of being the true daughter of the family. My parents were glowing with pride, inviting everyone from the wedding guest list back again, as if to erase me completely. I stayed silent. They thought I was broken, hiding, defeated, but silence is dangerous when it hardens into planning. The night of the party, I walked in uninvited. Heads turned instantly. The music faltered. Rachel froze mid-laugh, her champagne glass in hand. Dad's jaw clenched. Mom's smile vanished. I didn't look at them. I clapped my hands once, sharply, and the sound echoed through the hall. "Since you all enjoyed a show at my wedding," I said, my voice steady, "I thought you might want an encore." Gasps spread across the room. I stepped onto the stage, my heels clicking against the polished wood, and set down a small laptop. The screen behind me flickered to life. The first image appeared, my father's bank transfers. Money siphoned from his company into secret accounts. Gasps and whispers cut through the crowd. Then came his emails, calling colleagues idiots, bragging about stealing credit. The same man who had been celebrated for integrity was now stripped bare in front of his peers. Dad charged toward me, red-faced, but I raised my hand. "Not yet. Your turn comes later." Click, next slide. Melanie's golden child sister exposed in school reports. Cheating, bullying, stealing answers, bribing teachers. The screen flashed images of letters my parents had buried to protect her. Rachel's face crumbled, her glass dropping from her hand. "That's a lie!" she screamed, but her voice cracked. And then the recording. The one I had taken at the wedding when I thought I'd never forget their words. Dad's roar filled the speakers. "You're the family shame!" Mom's venom followed. "Bow to your sister or crawl out like a dog." Rachel's mocking whisper. "This is my wedding now." The hall froze. Guests who had laughed that night now shifted uncomfortably, shame crawling across their faces. Some looked disgusted, others shook their heads. Ethan's parents, seated near the back, stood and walked out without a word, dragging him with them. He didn't even look at me. My father lunged again, but no one stopped me this time. "You called me a dog," I said, my voice cutting like ice. "But dogs, remember, dogs bite back, and tonight you bow." I dropped the microphone, letting it crash to the floor. The echo rolled through the hall. I walked straight down the center aisle, and the crowd parted for me. People whispered, not about me, but about them. Behind me, chaos erupted, Rachel sobbing, mascara streaking her face, Mom clutching Dad's arm, begging him to fix it, Dad shouting, red and broken, as the whispers turned into judgments. Their empire of lies crumbled in the same kind of room where they once made me crawl. I pushed open the doors, stepped into the cold night air, and didn't look back. My tiara had shattered on the floor months ago. Tonight, it was their crowns that shattered. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one on my knees. They were. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.